Welcome back to the Cinematic Asylum on CILU. I'm your host in the journey across the treacherously nostalgic landscape of music from movies and television, Layman Pascal. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We'll be listening to songs from made-up movies. Now I know you're probably saying to yourself, don't be such a damned fool, Layman. All movies are made up. Well, I know, but these ones are really made up. I mean, I just made them up. They're totally imaginary films. None of these movies exist. And I'm only going to say this once at the top of the hour as a reward for folks who have tuned in early. Anybody who tunes in later will just assume that he or she is the only person in the world who has failed to see whatever wonderful film or television program we happen to be discussing. Although, to be fair, I kind of hope that some people can guess from the utterly preposterous nature of the titles and movie description that something hanky is going on. On the other hand, though, we do seem to live in an age where preposterosity is par for the course. The long prophesied Kali Yuga may be upon us, and in a few years a talking seal who escaped from the circus will be President of the United States and move the entire White House to Elon Musk's new Mars colony, which runs on a fuel made of root beer and algae. What I mean to say is that these days everything sounds crazy. And when times get really weird, that's when we need to fall back on some comforting nostalgia that helps us feel at least like the world makes sense and rewards human decency, and also non-human decency. And speaking of decent non-humans, let's take a moment to recall the classic 1973 holiday film, The Hedgehog Who Saved Christmas. I must have seen that movie a dozen times when I was a kid. We only had one channel on the farm, and CBC played this movie every year at Christmas. And that final scene, when the hedgehog they thought was dead comes trudging back with a nylon rope in his mouth, towing the half-inflated hot air balloon behind him with the missing Norwegian explorer and his daughter in it. Man alive, I always cry at that scene. That hedgehog is such a prickly little trooper, and under all those spikes, you know there's a heart of gold. So from the final ending credits scene of the family-friendly holiday classic The Hedgehog Who Saved Christmas, here is Of Montreal with Rafe pinned to the mist.
Pretend we don't exist. I'll never die. I'll just keep growing younger with you, and you'll grow younger too. Now it seems too lovely to be true, but I know the best things always do. Let's pretend we don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's pretend we don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's pretend we don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's pretend we don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's pretend we don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's pretend we don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's pretend we don't exist. Let's pretend we're in Antarctica. Let's pretend we don't exist.
Welcome back to the Cinematic Asylum. I'm Layman Pascal, and if you're just joining us, see if you can guess the theme that unites the movies and shows we're exploring today. If you think you've guessed it, write it down on a piece of paper, put that piece of paper in a jar, go out in your backyard and bury it, and one of our underground agents will contact you shortly. I'd like to talk about a real classic now. In the black and white 1953 film Chap Hop, a cabal of time-traveling musicians battle each other across the eons. It's a very interesting movie, one of the first time travel films ever made. And decades before the first official music video came out, this film featured numerous vignettes set to music in which the main characters, all real musicians in the chap hop genre, performed their own songs. Not many people realize the word hop in hip-hop is attributed to this movie and to the largely unsung style of singing featured in it. From the scene in which Professor Elemental accidentally puts on his time travel trousers instead of his fighting trousers, here's the song Fighting Trousers from the non-existent film Chap Hop.
Jeffrey, what's that you have in your hand, boy? Pass it over. A telegram. Oh dear. Seems someone has been biting me. Fetch me my trousers at once. No, not those. Those are my time travel trousers. Those are my tea trousers. That's it. Those ones. My fighting trousers. Dear sir, regarding your recent foray into the rap business and the scene you portray, see, I don't normally approve of war games, but he's biting is what they all say. And by Harry, they might be right. This is hip-hop, not an Elvis night. Shelve this professor impersonation. Let it end now, it's impertinent waiting. You seem a reasonable chap, what you need to do is rap and not parody chap hop, cause that's not proper, just not cricket. Put away your ukulele or I'll tell you where to stick it. I don't like your tweet, sir. Will teach you the professor's ready. Not. Let's see who strikes the loudest. Lou. Put on my fighting trousers. I've got super producers and fans that play me. You have a granddad's moustache and a ukulele. Don't look around, sir, I'm speaking to you. Roll up your shirt sleeves, Queensberry rules. Never test professors with the cleverest wit. Let's settle this like gentlemen armed with heavy sticks on a rotating plate with spikes like Flash Gordon. And you're Peter Duncan. I gave you fair warning. When this George Formby clone is performing, audiences go home before he begins talking. A new career might be more rewarding. I'm a bright Brighton peer, your rap's Piers Morgan. I don't like your tweet, sir. Will teach you the professor's ready. Not. Let's see who strikes the loudest. Lou. Put on my fighting trousers. I've not seen you at ciphers or workshops with kids or gigs, dear sir. You're not worthy of this. Sold out to Coca-Cola, used for a trend, and that means you're banned from using a pen. Hope it's safe to assume you won't do it again. Set foot on my stage and get ruined again. Be out, Mr. B. I set the egg timer. There's not room in town for two gentlemen rhymers. Leave town by the end of this instrumental. Yours, etc., etc. Sincerely, and so forth, Professor Elemental. I Don't like your tweed, sir? Will teach you the professor's ready. Not. Let's see who strikes the loudest. Lou. Put on my fighting trousers. I'm sorry, Geoffrey, but it gets my goat. Gets my dander right up. It's bloody told him. No jazz solo. This is supposed to be a diss song. Geoffrey, get off the drums.
You're listening to CILU 102.7 FM, and what you just listened to was Professor Elemental with the song Fighting Trousers from the film Chap Hop. Fans of the ironic, classic, supernatural adventure comedy Big Trouble in Little China were pleasantly surprised by the 2011 release of the sequel, Big Trouble in Little China in the year 1 million BC. If you recall the end of the first film, the mystic blowhard truck driver Jack Burton drives his pig delivery vehicle off into the stormy sunset. And as he rants philosophically onto his CB radio, we see that the anomalous Sasquatch-like demon that was imprisoned beneath Lo Pan's corporate fortress has hitched a ride on Jack Burton's truck. As the sequel opens, we discover Jack Burton's truck has somehow passed through an interdimensional rift and beached itself in the distant past with a number of other anachronistic objects and entities. Teaming up with Socrates, a couple of Spanish pirates, and a hairless, big-eyed denizen of the 34th century, Jack Burton battles dinosaurs, sorcerers, saucer people, sorcerosaurs, dino-saucers, tyrannosorcerers, and one adorable baby yeti, in a movie that a lot of fans consider to be even better than the original. And that's saying something. Most of the time, corporate sequels completely miss the spirit of the original by cramming commercial and ideological content into the picture and putting it in the hands of people who were never fans in the first place. Speaking of fans, you could go to the Wing Kong Exchange online. In their multimedia section, they provide classic sound bites from these two films, which you are encouraged to download, mix into a song, and then upload again. From a person known only as BTLC Fan Dave, here's one of my favorite songs, Hey Come On Let's Go, from the Wing Kong Exchange.
You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Who?
Jack Burton. Me.
Indeed!
Hey, come on, let's go!
Trey, your cards are right. You live to talk about it.
Lopan has plans, but if he didn't, we'd be dead door now. Lopan? Which Lopan? Little old basket case on wheels with a 10-foot-tall roadblock.
To the Army and Navy, the battles they have won. As to America's colors, the colors that never run.
May the wings of liberty never lose us. You really shook the pillars of heaven, didn't you? No horse shit, Jack. No horse shit.
Don't panic, it's only me, Gracie Law.
Cops got better things to do than get killed. Oh, the 6 demon bag. Terrific. A 6 demon bag. Sensational. What's in it, Egg? Hey, come on, let's go! What the hell?
Jack Burton's coming to rescue your summer.
What's happening, Wang?
Chinese standoff.
A what?
Don't make a sound.
Hey, come on, let's go! You're out of your mind, Wang. God bless you. And now for some more bad news. Ready? Indeed! I will have both of you roll off to the hell where people are skin denied a sex symbol, understand? Indeed. Son of a bitch must pay. Goat butts against the edge, and its horns become angry. Get to the goddamn point, Egg. It's all in the reflexes. Hello. Hello. Ha ha ha. Right. Hey, come on, let's go. Now, this really pisses me off to no end. Hey, come on, let's go. I can have you. Just listen to the old Pork Chop Express here now and take his advice on a dark and stormy night when the lightning's crashing and the thunder's rolling and the rain's coming down and sheep thick as lead. Just remember what old Jack Burton does when the earth quakes and the poison arrows fall from the sky and the pillars of heaven shake. Yeah, Jack Burton just looks that big old storm right square in the eye and he says, "Give me your best shot, pal. I can take it." Hey, come on, let's go! And when I find out, I will marry. Never! I will be happy and my curse will be lifted. Go off and rule the universe from beyond the grave. Indeed! Or check into a cycle war, whichever comes first, huh? 2,000 years and he can't find one broad to fit the bill. Come on, Dave, you must be doing something seriously wrong. Hey, come on, let's go. Hey, come on, let's go. Get to the goddamn point, Egg. Hey, come on, let's go. Indeed. Hey, come on, let's go. It's all in the reflexes.
You just heard Hey Come On Let's Go, remixed by BTLC fan Dave. Let's pivot to something more serious. The critically acclaimed film version of Nassim Taleb's modern philosophical masterpiece, Anti-Fragile. Taleb is a former Wall Street mathematical analyst and trader who started to see flaws in the standard academic and economic models of risk-taking. So he wrote a book called Fooled by Randomness and another one called The Black Swan. Both of them are about the ways that our brains, our math, and our experts are fooled into thinking that we are much better at predicting things than we actually are. And if we take seriously the fact that we did not predict most of the things, personally or socially, that already happened, then we should be really sensitive to the fact that the future is going to be full of shocks and surprises. In that case, we have to build our bodies, minds, hearts, and culture to be ready for that. Instead of optimizing ourselves to function with perfect efficiency under the current conditions that we know about, we should be organizing ourselves perhaps less efficiently to be prepared for the inevitable conditions that we don't know about. That's what anti-fragile means. How can we gain rather than lose when confronted by inevitable chaos, shock, and failure? A fragile item is like an expensive wine glass. Almost anything that happens to it will be bad. It is going to get chipped, broken, smudged, bumped. If you send it in the mail, you'll have to write fragile on the box in big letters. Most interactions will be bad for this item. There are also robust and resilient things like rocks. Rocks can take a beating and not be too damaged. Shoes can be dropped on the floor without breaking. A suit of armor can receive a sore blow without being destroyed. And people's minds can bounce back after stressful periods. But that's still not quite anti-fragile. Anti-fragile things actually benefit from stress in much the same way that your muscles get stronger if you strain them with exercise. Our brains get stronger if we confuse them with intricate new points of view. Beaches sometimes get lovelier when a wave smashes them, and wisdom grows every time it realizes it was wrong. This is an approach that nature uses very often. Organic things tend to exhibit this property of being able to profit from changes, chaos, time, and failure. If we didn't get better from failing, none of us would have even survived childhood. The film version of Anti-Fragile explores how we need to design our schools, economy, and homes so they are improved rather than weakened when the inevitable collisions and surprises occur. So from 2015's Anti-Fragile, starring the great Falmar Juvenosh Linkintonson, here's Movits with Feldel Avgarden.
Kommer från fel del av gården, från andra sidan spåret. Jag växte upp med zigenare och romer som spelade handklaver och ville spå mig medan min farsa tömde en flaska Explorer. Lärde mig lira gitarr och domarkonen. Django Spintet spelade ut grammofonen med second hand kavanger i garderoben och brassband line varenda kväll i trädgården. Det började bra men sen kom problemen. Träffade tidigt i klaveret och skattesedliga menar skyldigheter. Rättigheter, myndigheter, sannolikheten är lite närmare förmedlingen med yeah. Man kanske borde byta namn eller sälja sin husvagn eller knacka ut sin guldtand. Men någon gång måste fördomen hinna sig kapp yeah. Du kan kalla mig utanför för att jag inte gjorde som de andra gjorde när de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Ursäkta om jag stör. Det jobbar inte grannen ovanför. Med tänt ringer ju polisen varenda gång och säger det är jag som stör. Hon säger det är jag som stör. Kommer från jävla stadsdelen, det är det som är problemet. Jag växte upp i det finaste kvarteret. Min pappa han är designer med mera. Min andra farsa han är redan försenad. Själv var jag var barn och adopterad. Så skolgången blev lite svårt komplicerad. För klasskamraterna tyckte det verkar fel att och lärarinnan skulle snart pensioneras. Inte deras fel att det hela blev som det blivit. Enligt rekommendationer från den heliga skrift. Johans pappa passar, han är antikrist. Enligt fröken som försökt att förklara det visst. Men man kanske borde skjutit nätt. Eller åtminstone burit ut nätt. Nu är hon död och ligger i urnen. Men på något sätt lever ju borden eller idag ja. Du kan kalla mig utanför för att jag inte gjorde som de andra gjorde när de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Ursäkta om jag stör. Nu jobbar inte grannen ovanför. Men tänt ringer ju polisen varenda gång och säger det är jag som stör. Hon säger det är jag som stör. Husefriden eller dylikt. Har knappt någon tid att lyssna på din kritik. Inte lycklig men ganska så lycklig. Så tänt jag mig en chans att lyssna på min musik. Men nej, ta inte se den dit jag kommer. Om skeden är av silver så tager den jag kommer. Har de sagt så många gånger. Så tack men nej tack, jag hittar till utgången. Du kan kalla mig utanför för att jag inte gjorde som de andra gjorde när de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Ursäkta om jag stör. Nu jobbar inte grannen ovanför. Men tänt ringer ju polisen varenda gång och säger det är jag som stör. Hon säger det är jag som stör. Allting var ju bara en dröm. Jag är ju svensk och går före i kön. Till och med man och bara högre lön. Så tillvida att jag inte sitter arbetslös. Jag gillar motsatt kön. Så grabbar jag mig knappast den du kallar för bög. Men grabbar jag mig kanske den du kallar för trög. För jag fattar ju inte vad du säger även om jag hör. Du kan kalla mig utanför för att jag inte gjorde som de andra gjorde när de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Ursäkta om jag stör. Nu jobbar inte grannen ovanför. Men tänt ringer ju polisen varenda gång och säger det är jag som stör. Hon säger det är jag som stör. När de gjorde som de gjorde förr. När de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Ja, när de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Så stod jag där utanför. När de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Ja, när de gjorde som de gjorde förr. När de gjorde som de gjorde förr. Så fan i mig stod jag där utanför.
The very creepy horror movie Collider has a strange premise. It begins with physicists operating a particle collider. The idea being to learn about the behavior of systems at very small scales and, hypothetically, in the high energy conditions of the early universe. They get electrons and protons going really fast with giant magnets around an underground track and then smash them together to analyze the results. But these particular physicists take it a step further. As their understanding of quantum biology expands, they turn their attention to living systems. They start trying to understand birds by accelerating them and smashing them into each other and analyzing the chaotic tangle of bits of bird and streams of guts that are left over. And of course, being a horror movie, you can probably guess that these dangerously misguided intellectuals eventually proceed to anthropology, trying to learn about human beings by accelerating them around the track and smashing them together to study the bits. Creepy. Eventually, they're foiled by some meddling kids and a talking dog. From the soundtrack to the non-existent film Collider, here's the old 97s.
You're gonna crash on the barrelhead, son. You'll regret the things that you've done. One of these days you're gonna rue all the messed up things you do. You're gonna die the way you live and the way you drink. You're like a river bound to fall, not much fun. You're gonna crash on the barrelhead, son. You're gonna wake up in your shoes. No one you love watching you. You'll hate your face when the morning shines on the mirror frame and your guilty mind. Go. Crash on the barrelhead, son, and do the walls know what you've done? And do they listen on you? Do the walls know what you do? You're gonna wake up in your shoes. No one you love watching. Face when the morning shines on the mirror frame and your guilty mind. On the mirror frame and your guilty mind. On the mirror frame and your guilty mind.
Thank you. Well, I'm going down to see my highway girl. Yeah, she just got back from around the world. I'm gonna get me a gun, I'm gonna stand on guard. And a little white booth in her front yard. Throwing rocks at a window, what could she do? I throw like a girl. If
She had a beautiful apartment. She had a beautiful apartment. Well, actually, it was a lousy apartment, but she's very handy with her hands, and she's got Architectural Digest magazines, so she knows what she's doing. She likes to decorate her apartment in the Santa Fe tradition. I told her it was dated, but I see more of the world than she does. She got an apartment where the property was cheap, next to the freeway. She said, I save lots of money, but I lose lots of sleep in my apartment where the property is so cheap. And we'd laugh, and we'd laugh, and we'd laugh. Oh, we'd take pot shots at the passing car, and we'd laugh. Oh, we were dumping the body, and we'd laugh. We found a place that was dark and rotten. A place where the police helicopters would never spot it. I destroyed the map that we so carefully dotted. Every day we're dumping a body, she and me. Every single day. And we'd laugh about it. That's when I knew it was time that we both kill ourselves together. Together we were nothing but a menace. Apart, we were nothing but lonely. I read too much. I thought we should kill ourselves. She doesn't read a thing. She believed me. Are you really the Messiah? Yes, I am. She was younger than me, too. She was younger than me. And I said to her, I said, you know, Colleen, no one stamps on a burning bag of shit anymore. Nobody. Yes, I am. Believe it. So we opted to kill ourselves, as I said, but we had one rifle and one bullet. So I told her to put her head down close to the barrel and put the barrel sort of into her mouth, and I'd be right behind her, with my head right behind hers. I said her life would end instantly. Mine might have a few extra minutes of agony and suffering. She couldn't pull the trigger, so we attached a string to it, around the lamp and to the doorknob. The first person to come into our cheap fucking apartment would blow both our heads off. And we got to thinking, we changed our minds. You know, I mean, we got scared and we kind of chickened out, and we'd laugh. You know, we laughed about it. What were we thinking? We're together. We're not that bad. We're not that bad. We don't need to kill ourselves. We don't need to kill ourselves. And then the D train rattled overhead. Knock the door ajar, the door ajar, the door ajar, the jar door, the door ajar. The knob, the faulty lock, the door swung open. Killed her. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. They said, don't you think God, you push a bit too fast? I said, slowing down, don't make it last. And then she said, I'm memories that will set you free. Oh boy, let's see that word, bring it home to me. Oh.
You just heard Crash on the Barrelhead and a live version of Highway Girl by the Tragically Hip, both from the soundtrack to the film Collider. The Sublime song, April 29, 1992, was written as the title track for the obscure cult classic film April 29th. That movie is a docudrama about race riots in the United States, which continually comes back to the theme that is so well captured by the song's lyrics, "It's not in the paper, it's on the walls." While ostensibly detailing the wave of riots that swept across the continent in the early 1990s, the film acts more fundamentally as a critique of the way we relate to news in general. More especially, the limiting influence of our assumption that news is something that gets reported to us in newspapers or news shows. Not only do hidden biases in the individuals and in the structure of our reporting systems lead to some crucial topics being minimized or excluded, but very fundamentally, we assume the main entities and drivers of situations are things that can be verbalized and publicly communicated. We're language fetishists. Everybody on every side of every issue seems to assume that cultural outcomes are being programmed by the way we speak, and that we must scrutinize verbal exchanges for hints of emergent fascism or socialism or anythingism. That we must critique the written content of Bibles to discern the behavior of believers, or conversely that we would have no morality at all without that which gets written down in books. In every direction we find a shared human ideology that says not only can reality be converted into words, but that words can create reality. From the film April 29th, here's Sublime with the song April 29th, 1992.
I don't know if you can, but can you get an owner for ONS? That's O-N-S Junior Market. The address is 1934 East Anaheim. All the windows are busted out, and it's like a free-for-all here, and the owner should maybe come down here and see if he can secure his business if he wants to.
April 26, 1992. There was a riot on the streets. Tell me, where were you? You were sitting home watching your TV while I was participating in some anarchy. First spot we hit, it was my liquor store. I finally got all that alcohol I can't afford. With red lights flashing, time to retire, and then we turned that liquor store into a structure fire. Next stop we hit, it was the music shop. It only took one break to make that window drop. Finally we got our own PA. Where do you think I got this guitar that you're hearing today? Hey!
Call fire and tell them to respond to the mobile station. Alameda, Anaheim. It's flaming up good.
And for Alameda Station, Anaheim.
When we returned to the pad to unload everything, it dawned on me that I need new home furnishings. So once again we filled the van until it was full. Since that day my living room's been much more comfortable, cause everybody in the hood has added up to here. It's getting hotter and hotter and harder each and every year. Some kids went in a store with their mother. I saw her when she came out, she was getting some Pampers. They said it was for the black man, they said it was for the Mexican, and not for the white man. But if you look at the street, it wasn't about Rodney King. It's not this fucked up situation and these fucked up police. It's about coming up and staying on top and screaming 187 on a motherfucking cop. It's not in the paper, it's on the wall. National Guard, smoke from all around.
Units be advised there's an attempt to 11 to arrest now at 938 Temple, 938 Temple. 30 subjects with bands trying to get inside the CP's house. 6 are trying to kill them.
Cause I'm alive, I'm a live illegal.
When I first learned about the band Negativland, I went to my older brother, my half-brother, who I knew had a collection of very obscure music. "Do you have any Negativland?" I asked. "The new stuff or the old stuff?" he asked me. "The new stuff," I said excitedly. "No," he told me. "The old stuff?" I asked expectantly. "No," he told me. It was subtly hilarious to make a distinction when the answer was the same negation in both cases. What I didn't realize then was that Negativland would go on to provide the entire series soundtrack for the HBO drama 10,000 Arrows. This was a controversial program when it aired because it only cast people who self-identify as non-humans, and that's tricky. These are people who genuinely feel their essential nature is that of cats, dogs, dolphins, zebras, trees. But is it valid? And does it undermine people who self-identify with a transgender of some kind? And does it undermine the principle of organizing people by self-identification at all? Difficult questions. How do we group human beings? Do we use traditional and superficial features like skin pigment and genitalia? Do we use people's verbally asserted claims, whether these be that of belonging to a race, gender, or species? Or do we try to figure out some other more scientific way of grouping human beings that we're not yet sure of? Tricky, tricky. From the Season 4 soundtrack of 10,000 Arrows, here's the avant-garde collage band Negativland with their song Aluminum or Glass.
Understand what a seagull is. Do we know about the ants there in the grass? Would the ants in the grass understand what the man's vulva is? Do they know you can buy Pepsi in aluminum or glass?
For this commercial, the look, the style, and the music is everything. Lighting should be dramatic, but not shadowy. Location should be beautiful, but not weird. Clothing should be contemporary, but not punk. Casting should be characterizations, but not to the point of poodles. In other words, we can go out of the ordinary, but we can't live there.
Would advertising executive understand where the homeless live? Do we know about the bubbles in his glass? Would the bubbles in his glass understand what the man's golf cart is? Do we know you can die frozen underneath an overpass?
Every object, prop, and piece of clothing should complement each other. The photographic approach should be fresh, alive, and inspiring. Contemporary is a good word here. Like the 501 Gene ads, like the Levi Cord Night ads, like the Honda Scooter ads.
Heightened reality vignettes.
When we're back to back.
Heightened reality vignettes.
Heightened reality vignettes.
See you. But when we're face to face, I'm
Heightened reality vignettes that all exist in the examples I've just described.
Will a man living in Los Angeles understand what a seagull is? Do we know about the ants there in the grass?
These Pepsi ads.
Would the ants in the grass understand what the man's vulva is?
These Pepsi ads. These Pepsi ads should not look too urban, too ethnic, too new wave, or too anything. I know this may sound confusing, but I think it's better to know now than to argue on the set about it later.
Good luck, everyone.
Would a man living in Los Angeles?
Good luck, everyone.
Would a man living in Los Angeles?
Good luck, everyone.
Would a man living in Los Angeles?
Good luck,
Los Angeles.
everyone.
The 2015 romantic comedy My Dad's Old Albums is about a shy girl, self-conscious about her vestigial gills, who falls in love with an autistic boy who may or may not have telekinetic powers, and whose anxiety can only be calmed down by playing one of the 7 albums his dead father left him in a record collection. So, over the course of the film and the course of the increasingly complicated love affair, we get to explore each of these 7 albums. It's a really lovely experience. It's like living through the far side of relationships itself. Like crawling around the wiring behind the walls of the heart, like putting on your snorkel and spelunking in the ribald catacombs of atavistic flummery, like wassailing the warchunked whittleshins of wevery inconsequent welberquium. From my own not yet dead father's record collection, here's a song I grew up with, Ry Cooder singing Jesus on the Main Line.
I know Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Well, the line ain't never busy. Tell him what you want. Oh, the line ain't never busy. Tell him what you want. Well, the line ain't never busy. Tell him what you want. You can call him up and tell him what you want. Well, if you want in this kingdom, tell him what you want. If you want in this kingdom, tell him what you want. If you want in this kingdom, tell him what you want. Call him up, call him up, call him up, call him up. You can call him up and tell him what you want. Well, if you're sick and you wanna get well, tell him what you want. Well, if you're sick and you wanna get well, tell him what you want. If you're sick and you wanna get well, tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. Well, if you're feeling down and out, tell him what you want. If you're feeling down and out, tell him what you want. If you're feeling down and out, tell him what you want. Call him up and tell him what you want. I know Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus on that main line. Tell him what you want. Call him up. 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 You can call him up and tell him what you want.
the deep dark wood. My skin grew cold and my bones they shook. I took a step in and I heard a distant cry, knowing something somewhere, something just died.
Welcome back to the Cinematic Asylum on CILU 102.7 FM. Today I've been Layman Pascal, and you've been listening to the soundtracks of movies that do not exist. Every one of them completely made up. Thanks for listening, and from the unmade David Lynch film One Saliva Bubble, here's the man himself singing, I Know.
She stopped to sing since I went and did that thing. I know.